Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by welcoming everyone. Welcome to What Tung You. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is what we call our group learning program, where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to establish a foundation in the path to enlightenment. The individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out 2,500 years ago how to attain enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training the mind. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that is causing these feelings, but it's actually what's going on within your own mind that's causing this. This is why you can eliminate it. So we start each one of our classes with meditation because this is part of the training, but you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. You need more than just meditation. So after the meditation, I'm going to share a talk with you from this book. We're in chapter 13 today. I go chapter by chapter each Sunday. Chapter 13 is titled Identifying Cravings, Cultivating Non-Craving, and Analysis of the Mind. This is where I help students to be able to understand how to surgically go in and remove the cause and condition that is producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So I'll share that with you guys after our meditation. If you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to be able to ease into the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. We have the chants on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to a chanting sheet and you can chant along because it does help you to ease into the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And those of you guys that are online, you can find this chanting sheet on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. Just click on free books and you can scroll down towards the middle of the page and you'll see the chanting sheet there. The chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha was used as a learning tool or as a learning device to be able to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, the students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So it was used as a tool to be able to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. So it's important to be able to see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or any of those kinds of things. If you see those types of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't his actual teachings. Those are misunderstandings. He never actually taught rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. Instead, he taught you to train your mind, focus on this inner work, this inner growth, and this inner development. So if you choose to chant, just know that it's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. And if you end up getting one of those chanting sheets, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself, because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be ego or arrogance if someone did this. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't look at yourself as being above people or below people. He would have just seen himself as being equal to everybody. So you're welcome to chant along if you like, and you'll see more benefit with that. You'll see that appreciation because I think that his students actually created it, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, and frustration and all these other feelings to the peaceful, joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, you might actually have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. The Buddha was helping people out of the kindness of his heart to be able to help people to be able to experience the same mental state that he had attained. After the chanting, we're going to be in the meditation where I'm going to be guiding you. I'm going to be essentially teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together. Everybody here at the temple and anybody online who's joining, we're just all going to be meditating at the same time. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation, craving permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is the underlying cause that is producing all these discontent feelings, is that the unenlightened mind craves permanence while it lives in an impermanent world. So if you're in meditation, understanding that the world is impermanent and you hear a sound, you can just be peaceful and joyful and just know that, yeah, this is the way the world works, that these sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away. After the period of time of quietness, we're going to come out of that meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand chapter 13 and how to almost surgically go in and remove some of these cravings, desires, attachments out of the mind. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. It's like having a tool belt, and you invoke the various tools that you need at different times, depending on what you're trying to accomplish in your meditation. But oftentimes students are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on the seated position, just to help you maybe get started or find something that's even more comfortable than what you already have. So you could be sitting on the floor, in a chair. If you're at home, maybe you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. There's not just one fixed way to sit, because that would be permanence, and we don't live in that world. Everybody's body is a little bit different. So what I'm going to share with you are just recommendations or suggestions that you can use them if you like. But even if you find something on your own that you like, that's something that I haven't taught, that's fine too. You can sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit. You're not training the body, you're training the mind. So sit however you're comfortable. These are just some suggestions for you to consider. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly, because that way you won't have pain in your lower body. Some people like to put the legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. The same thing's true for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you too. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of the upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid with the upper body, your mind could be overactive or uptight. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind, and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. And having the sternum up and shoulders back will help you to do that. It also makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to start with the chanting. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in afterwards with the guidance to be able to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sankho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti piso imahakawa arahang sammasammuto vicacaranang sammuno sakatoro kawitu anutero purisa dhamma sati satatawa manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะขวาพุทธังมะขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิ นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today, what I'm going to do is share with you guys this topic of helping you to understand how to identify your cravings and cultivating non-craving and analysis of the mind. This is going to help you to actually get to the point where your mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. There's multiple teachings that you need to learn, but by the time you get here at this point in time in chapter 13, I teach you how to go in and surgically remove the causes and conditions that are producing the discontent feelings in the mind. What I'm going to teach you today works in about 80% of the situations, but there's teachings that the Buddha shares with you that are going to help you to be able to eliminate all the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. That's the actual purpose of the teachings of the Buddha, is to get to a point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You can eliminate all of this from the mind. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but it's actually what's going on in your own mind. What the mind has is something called craving, desire, attachment. The mind is longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is expecting things to be a certain way. And if the mind gets what it wants, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. The mind in the unenlightened state is craving permanence. You need to be able to see this for yourself. None of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief, so don't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you today. The Buddhist teachings aren't about believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life, getting to a point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. This is a permanent mental state that you can experience. Your mind will be focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. All your personal and professional relationships will really be blossoming. You won't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. You'll get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood. And in order to get to this point, you need to cultivate wisdom and be able to understand how the world truly functions and how your mind truly functions. So take a look at your own life, because what I'm sharing with you is that your mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state, while everything in the world around you is impermanent. So as long as your mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world, you're not going to get everything that you want and everything you expect. And therefore, the mind's going to experience anger, sadness, frustration, and these other feelings. So take maybe a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was wanting? What were you expecting? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been really happy about that. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted or expected, it experienced some kind of change, then the mind experienced anger, sadness, or frustration, or some other feeling. I'll give you a couple of examples, but you really need to see this in your own life, because that's what's going to bring it to life for you. And you can independently verify what I'm sharing with you is true. Let's just say you woke up in the morning and you saw it was sunny outside. You got so happy and excited about that it was sunny outside. And you were interested in going on this hiking trip with your friends. Maybe you're going to go out for a day for 6 hours, 8 hours and go hiking out in the forest. Well, let's just say you go take a shower, and when you come out, it's raining, and now you're angry or frustrated. Your mind's causing that itself. It's nothing else that's causing that other than what's going on in your own mind, that the mind was craving to go out on that hiking trip. It was craving for the sun to be there. But when it experienced this change, which is it went from sun to rain, the mind experienced anger and frustration. Nobody caused that feeling to occur in your mind. It was the mind itself that caused this. It's physically impossible for anybody else to insert a feeling into your mind. And you can see this for yourself through this example and others. Let's just say your bank account balance is up here. You get really, really happy about that. Well, when your bank account balance goes down here, you'll maybe be sad or frustrated. That's because the mind's craving permanence. The only thing that's happened in these two examples is change. That's all it is. It's just change. And the mind is craving permanence. Let's just say you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. You were really happy and excited about that. And now when you guys broke up, maybe you're angry or sad or frustrated. Maybe you're lonely or bored or missing this person. This isn't your love that's causing that. That's the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently, when in reality, they are impermanent. People are going to be coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. This is why people grieve or have sorrow and sadness at the time of death, when maybe grandma or grandpa are dying, or mom or dad or other people like that. It's not your love that's causing this. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. Because grandma and grandpa were born, they had to die. This is just a part of life, that things are constantly changing in the world. But the mind is holding on and craving permanence. Let's just say you went to the airport, so excited to come to Thailand, and you just can't wait to get here, and you show up and your airplane's delayed or it's canceled, and you get angry or frustrated. It's not the airline company that's causing that. It's the mind craving permanence. The mind is longing, yearning, and wanting and expecting this plane to take off on time. The mind wants every single plane to take off on time. And it's just not possible, because we live in an impermanent world. There's going to be maintenance issues, crew issues. There's going to be weather delays. These things are all normal. But the mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state. Say you got a brand new car and you were so pleased with this brand new car. You were so excited with it. But then you drove it and you parked it at a store and you went inside and you came out and there's a scratch on the car. If you get angry and frustrated here, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just what the mind does in the unenlightened state. But it's not the scratch that's causing the anger and frustration. And it's not the person who scratched the car. What's causing this anger and frustration is that the mind's craving permanence. The mind wants this car to look beautiful permanently. right? It doesn't want this car to have a scratch on it. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch any cars. But the fact is that this car is going to get a scratch. It's going to change. It's going to deteriorate. This car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. If you crave permanence, when you experience change with this car, the mind won't like it. This is one of the ways to say it, is that the mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state. But another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Look at your life. Look at all the times that you've been struggling and having the most difficulties in life. This is when you were experiencing change. You were changing living locations. You were changing relationships. You were changing jobs. When these things change in your life, your mind doesn't like it. Even though you're the one making the decisions for this change to occur, your mind is holding on and it's struggling. So you need to be able to see what's causing these feelings so that then you can learn about how to eliminate them. Because what I've taught so far in this program is many different topics, and the core central teaching of the Buddha is called the Eightfold Path. This is the main solution of how to actually eliminate this craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, and craving permanence and holding on. And there's various tools and techniques on this Eightfold Path that the Buddha shares that's going to help you to be able to transform your mind. But once somebody understands that, I start moving into this topic to be able to help you to almost understand how to surgically go in and remove some of your cravings, desires, attachments. So I'm going to share this with you, but I'm going to pause a few times and open up for questions to see what you guys would like to ask. So if you have a question here, we have microphones in the center of the room in the white bowl. We have some up here as well. You guys are welcome to get a microphone, take it back to your seat. Press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on. And if you hold this up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't actually be able to hear you online. And then if you'd like to keep these microphones with you, that's fine. You might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share it with them. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So first, let me help you guys to understand a little bit more about this craving, desire, attachment, because I just kind of jumped into it there for a moment to help you guys be able to see this for yourself. And if you can't see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you need to let me know, because I've had plenty of people that have needed help over the years, and you might actually have a question. I've had people tell me that they don't think that it's their own mind causing their discontent feelings, that they're sure it's their wife that is causing their feelings. And they maybe will give me a call and they're like, David, I need to talk to you. And I'll say, okay, what's going on? They'll say, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And when I came home, my wife had this craft project all over the house. And when I walked in, I got angry and I got mad and frustrated. Didn't she cause me to be angry? She's the one who messed up the house. And I said, no, it wasn't your wife. It was your mind craving permanence, that your mind was holding on and expecting and wanting your house to look exactly the same when you came home as when you went to work. The only thing that happened here is change. That's it. So you need to be able to see this through multiple examples so you can independently verify this and you don't believe what it is that I'm sharing. What craving, desire, attachment is in general is it's where the mind is longing, yearning. It's pulling in the directions of the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. The mind has an almost unquenchable thirst in the unenlightened state, thinking that these external objects are going to somehow provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it. It's kind of like the mind thinks, I don't feel good here. What's going to fix this? More money. That'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So now the mind will chase after money. And if you get your money, you'll feel really happy. But if you don't get it, you'll feel sad or frustrated. But even if you get your money, that happiness will wear off over time because you got however much money that you wanted. You worked really hard to get there. But now the mind wants more, and it wants more, and it wants more. And then the mind's like, what do I need to feel better here? I know what'll do it. A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get a new boyfriend or girlfriend. So now the mind will chase after that for a while. And then you'll get your boyfriend or girlfriend, and you'll feel really happy at the beginning. but then the relationship will deteriorate and it'll fall apart, and now you'll be back in the painful feelings again. And then the mind's like, what do I need to feel better? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go to Thailand. Thailand will fix everything. They have mango and sticky rice. They have massages and elephants. I can play with the elephants. This will be great. And now you get really excited to go to Thailand and you're so happy. But then when you have to go back home, I don't want to go back home. The mind doesn't want to go, right? It's really frustrated and angry about this. So the mind's stuck in this constant cycle of craving and chasing after something, and it can only be happy if it gets what it wants. But even that happiness fades away. It's only temporary. What the Buddha's guiding you to is this permanent happiness, permanent joy. It's unconditioned joy. It's unconditioned happiness. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for that happiness to exist in the mind. But as long as this craving, desire, attachment is in the mind, where the mind is craving and longing, yearning, then it can only be happy when it gets the objects of its affection. This is the cause of discontentedness. But you can eliminate this through training the mind with the Eightfold Path. There's something called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is referred to as craving, anger, and ignorance. I tend to use the phrase unknowing of true reality. This helps you understand from a high level more of what's going on in the mind. The craving is what we were just talking about. The mind pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. And it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. But when it doesn't get what it wants, it experiences the painful feelings. And when those painful feelings arise in your mind, the mind will firmly believe that somebody else is causing this. You will blame your parents, your siblings, your coworkers, your life partner, your children. It's everybody else who's causing these feelings. This is what the mind firmly believes in the unenlightened state. But with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. And that's why you need to peer into this and see the truth, that it's not other people that are causing these feelings. It's your own mind. Because when that anger is arising and it feels uncomfortable for you, and you firmly believe that it's something external that's causing this, what you will tend to do is you'll tend to push people away. You'll push away your friends or family. You might have done this where you've pushed people out of your life. This is called aversion, where the mind thinks that this other person or this situation is causing the painful feelings, and the mind thinks the way to solve it is push it away. But that doesn't actually solve it. And you can see that that's the truth, because when you push that person out of your life, you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get irritated. If that person was the true cause of your feelings, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand that it's craving, desire, attachment and that's causing these feelings, and the anger is arising, then you'll tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. And you might feel justified in your conduct, being bitter and harsh and hostile to this person, but it's just damaging your relationships. It's trying to fear that person into doing things your way, because the mind wants this craving to be fulfilled. It wants to get the objects of its affection. And it thinks if I yell and holler and scream at this person, that they'll do it my way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people and pressure people, try to convince them to do things your way through pressure. And people might actually be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and they're putting expectations on you and trying to pressure you to do things their way. But this doesn't actually solve the problem, because where this is coming from, this craving and anger, is coming from the third poison or the third unwholesome root, which is often referred to as ignorance, but the Buddha wouldn't have used that word because that's a derogatory way of referring to someone. So I prefer to use the phrase unknowing of true reality. The lack of wisdom, the confusion, the misunderstanding. That's where all of this is coming from. That the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. Because of its lack of wisdom, the mind continues to crave and it continues to have anger, being stuck in this continuous cycle. And the way that you break this cycle is by cultivation of wisdom. That's why you don't believe any of the teachings of the Buddha. You need to penetrate into it and see the truth for yourself of what's really going on in your own mind, and then apply the tools and the techniques that the Buddha taught in order to transform your mind. So while we call this craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance or the unknowing of true reality that craving and anger continues to exist in the mind. If it wasn't for that lack of wisdom and that confusion, you would have already eliminated your craving and you would have already eliminated your anger. So this is an indication for you, this anger and frustration and agitation and annoyance and all these other feelings like stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear. It's an indication for you that your mind hasn't awakened yet, that the mind hasn't moved to this higher consciousness, that the mind is still experiencing these discontent feelings. You can evolve as a human being, becoming a better and better human being where you don't experience those things any longer. And it just means that you need to cultivate wisdom of how to do this. That just like we cultivated wisdom of how to clean the body, we need to cultivate the wisdom of how to clean the mind. There's more than just a body here. There's a physical body that we all have, and we learned how to clean that growing up. But there's this other part to this being who you are, which is the mind. And if you walked around with this body and you didn't clean this body for many days, weeks, months, or years, you would be very uncomfortable in that body. Well, if you haven't learned how to clean your mind and you don't have the wisdom of how to do that, and you're walking around for several days, weeks, months, and years without cleaning the mind, of course you experience stress. Of course you have anxiety. Of course you feel guilt and shame and fear in different situations. But you can eliminate all of this. But you need to first understand what's causing it, is that it's coming from your own mind. It's not coming from the outside world. So these three poisons, these three unwholesome roots, these three fires helps you to understand at a high level what's really going on in the mind. But there's a deeper level of detail that the Buddha shares that I teach in other programs. So not only is craving, desire, attachment causing this discontentedness, these discontent feelings to be experienced, but it's also the cause of rebirth, where an individual is going to be reborn back into the world over and over and over again. Now, as you guys heard me share, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You're never interested in believing the cycle of rebirth, that this is true. You need to be able to independently verify it. So there's ways for you to do that, but it's not something that you usually learn when you first get started on the path to enlightenment. But here for this particular topic, as I'm teaching about craving, desire, attachment, yes, it's the cause of discontent feelings, but it's also the cause of rebirth and why someone keeps coming back over and over in the world again. So in our book series in volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria to help you independently verify the cycle of rebirth. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, because maybe right now you can't remember your previous lives. But as you start training your mind and you're lifting this pollution out of your mind more and more, you might actually start observing memories from a previous life. In fact, you might have already had that experience. If you know what deja vu is, if you've ever experienced this, where you're doing a certain thing and it feels utterly familiar to you, but you know you didn't do it in this life because you've never even been to this place before. It's the first time you've ever been there. And you know that, oh my gosh, this feels so familiar. This is your residual memories from your previous life bubbling up to the surface of your mind. So there's these types of things that helps you to be able to see that, yes, you are in the cycle of rebirth, but this is something that you shouldn't believe. I just encourage students to set it to the side. And then in the future, when you're ready, you can approach the cycle of rebirth and you can independently verify it. But just know that the craving, desire, attachment, not only is it producing discontentedness, but it's producing rebirth as well. So it's important to get rid of craving, desire, attachment from the mind. The number one goal on the path to enlightenment is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment from the mind. You need to cultivate the wisdom of how to do that, because the number one goal with the teachings of the Buddha is to get to complete peace and joy where the mind doesn't experience those discontent feelings. And you can't do that as long as there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind. So the Buddha's teachings are guiding you of how to actually eliminate that. But how could you ever eliminate cravings, desires, attachments from the mind if you didn't know how to identify them? That's what I'm going to teach you, is how to identify your cravings, desires, attachments. By identifying craving, desire, attachment and learning how to do that, you will develop the second most important skill on the path to enlightenment. The first most important skill is to meditate. You're going to need to learn how to meditate. That's a consistent practice. But you can't just meditate your way to enlightenment. You're going to need other things besides meditation. But in addition to meditation, this particular thing that I'm going to teach you today is the second most important thing for you to be able to develop as an ability to practice on a regular basis as part of your practice to be able to get to enlightenment. There's breathing mindfulness meditation and the practice of generosity, which is going to really target your cravings, desires, attachments, and train the mind to let go. Because what craving, desire, attachment does in your mind is it holds on. It doesn't want to let go. This is why when you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, that right afterwards you were angry or sad or frustrated or feeling lonely or bored or missing that person, because the mind was holding on. It was craving permanence. But at some point your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. Or if she wants to live in a different part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. But the mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. So that meditation that we just did, where we were focused on the breath, and when the mind moved off the breath, we cut that off and let it go and came back to the breath. This is training your mind to let go. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case based on the guidance that we provide during the meditation, but that's not the goal. The goal is to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. So if 10, 15, 20, 30 times during your meditation, you had to let go, that's really, really helpful for your mind because your mind doesn't know how to let go. So breathing mindfulness meditation is a consistent practice that you're going to need to develop on an ongoing basis, in addition to the things that I'm going to teach you today. You're also going to need to practice generosity. Generosity is the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. Sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources. Because with craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll be somewhat selfish. You'll hold on to things. It's like my money, my phone, my friends, my clothes, my jewelry, mine. Mind's going to hold on to things. So what you need to be able to do is regularly practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing with the people around you without any expectation of anything in return. But you need to do this from the middle way, because if you overextend yourself with generosity, you won't have the basic needs that you need in order to be able to sustain your life. But if you're never sharing with others, your mind's going to be quite selfish. So coming to the middle, you can now give and share with the people around you. I suggest you do this in simple ways. Like if you're going to the store and you notice someone's behind you, you could actually hold the door for them and let them go in first. But remember, you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there expecting them to say thank you and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. You'll be annoyed. This is your own mind craving permanence. I want everybody who walks through this door to say thank you. And if they don't say thank you, then your mind's not getting what you want, what you expect. So in that situation, you're not actually practicing generosity. You still have craving, desire, attachment. So when you're practicing generosity, you should do it without any expectation, not even a thank you. So if you're going your way to the market and you're buying yourself some mangoes, toss some bananas in there, right? Maybe your neighbor would like some bananas. You can give those away, right? It only takes you an extra 30 seconds to a minute to get an extra bananas. Or say you're going to 7-Eleven. You're buying yourself a chocolate bar. You could buy an extra 1 or 2 or 3. You don't maybe even know who you're going to give it away to, but you know you're going to be seeing somebody today, and you can give it away to somebody that you see. This is a practice of generosity. So breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, it's a daily practice. And what you're going to notice is the frequency with these is more important than the amount. So if it's a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, the 2 for 15 is going to be more impactful. Or if it's a matter of giving $500 once a year to an orphanage or giving $1 a day, the $1 a day is actually going to be more impactful to the mind because you're having to let go more frequently. So once you have these practices built up where you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, what you're going to be able to do through the practice of these things is develop your mindfulness or awareness of mind, where you're going to start noticing your mind having craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's longing, yearning. So when you're aware that your mind moves off the breath during meditation, that's helping you to build your mindfulness or awareness of mind. And when you're in your day-to-day life and you see your mind longing, yearning for something, you can apply what's called right effort to cut that off and let it go. If you've been building up your meditation practice where every time your mind moves off your breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to your breath, you're building an internal mechanism in your mind to be able to cut off and let go, cut off and let go. So now let's just say you're at the mall and you're walking through the mall and you see some shoes in the window and you're like, oh my gosh, those shoes, oh, they look so great. I can't wait to get them on my feet. But then you can see your mind longing, yearning. You're like, oh, that's a craving. I've got like 30 pairs of shoes. I don't anymore, but I have 30 pairs of shoes at home. And what is one more pair of shoes going to do for me? So you can apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Because if you go in the store so excited to get those shoes and they have your size, oh, you'll be so excited. You'll be so happy. But when your shoes get damaged or lost or stolen or something like this, you'll be frustrated or angry. Or if you go in the store and you're so excited to get those shoes and they don't have your size, you'll be frustrated and angry because you're not getting what you want, right? So where you see your mind longing, yearning, you can actually restrain it. It's almost like riding a horse. If you've ever ridden a horse and a horse has reins and you pull back the reins to slow the horse down, that's the same thing you're doing with your mind. You're pulling your mind back, not allowing it to long and yearn like that. So the breathing mindfulness meditation in the generosity is helping you to develop that ability to have mindfulness, awareness of mind, and to be able to cut off and let go. And this builds your mental discipline to be able to get to the point where you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. But there's other things as well for you to be able to learn, which is what I'm going to teach you today. When you're experiencing discontentedness, whether it's anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, any of these feelings, this is like a red light on the dashboard of your car. This is alerting you, hey, there's something going on in your mind. But typically when people experience these discontent feelings, they just look for somebody else to blame. They'll blame their parents or their siblings, their coworkers, their boss, their life partner, their children. But that's not what would be wise. If you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, instead of blaming others, what you would like to do is look inward. You'd like to look at your own mind. Use that discontentedness like a red light flashing on the dashboard of your car. And what would you do if you had a red light flashing on the dashboard of your car? You'd pull over, right? You're not going to keep driving this car. You're going to pull the car over. And if you have some skills, you're probably going to pop the hood and you're going to start looking under the hood, right? And if you don't have any skills, you'll probably take your car to an auto mechanic and let the auto mechanic look at it for you, right? So your mind is the same way here. You can use these discontent feelings as a red light on the dashboard of your car. And what you'd like to do is pull over. Go find a quiet place to sit down and start looking inward and start trying to figure out what's going on in your mind. What are you craving? What are you longing for? What are you expecting? What is the craving that the mind has? So if you're checking into the airport and they say, hey, we're so sorry you can't check in yet. Your flight's delayed. It's going to be another 3 hours before you can check in. And you're like, whoa, you start noticing the anger arising, the frustration arising. Well, you'd like to cut that off and let it go. But now you can start looking inward and you start trying to figure out what's going on here, right? So this red light analogy with the car is that if you can pull over and you can start looking inward, I'm going to teach you how to do that today, right? But if you can't actually look inward and you don't know what are your cravings, desires, attachments, there's the ability to take your car to the auto mechanic. The auto mechanic in this situation is your teacher. If you have a Buddhist teacher who you're working with and who's starting to understand you because you're starting to spend time with that person and share details about what's going on in your life, that person can help you to be able to understand how to identify your cravings, desires, attachments. That you can say, hey, teacher, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing these types of things. can you help me to uncover what are my cravings, desires, attachments? If you do that 2, 3, 4 times, maybe 5 times at the most, eventually you'll have this skill and you won't need to go to the teacher for this particular skill. But at the beginning, you might need to cultivate this skill to be able to look inward. So whenever you're angry or sad or frustrated or any of these other discontent feelings, don't ignore it. Don't push it down. Don't just blame it on other people, but start looking inward. And I'm going to give you this process that you can follow in order to be able to do this. So based on the teachings of the Buddha, whenever you experience discontentedness, whether it's anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, any kind of discontent feeling whatsoever, the first thing you would like to do when you notice that arising is cut that off and let it go. You would like to cut it off as soon as possible. At the beginning, when you first start experiencing this discontent feeling, it's not going to be a feeling yet. It's going to start out as a bodily sensation. You may or may not be aware of this right now, but before your mind gets angry, you experience bodily sensations. It's like an early warning system alerting you that you're about to get angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. With anger, it might be tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system that you may or may not be aware of right now that is alerting you that, hey, you're about to experience some anger. You're about to experience some frustration. Or like say with shyness, sometimes people have this queasiness in the stomach. They might call it butterflies. Someone might say, oh, I have butterflies in my stomach. What they're really talking about is queasiness in the stomach. Even the pleasant feelings, the conditioned pleasant feelings, those have bodily sensations too. It's usually tingling across the shoulders, tingling up the back of the neck and over the skull. And sometimes people call this warm fuzzies. And they're like, oh, that feels so good. They like that feeling, right? This is the early warning system that your mind's about to form a conditioned feeling. And whenever you notice that your mind is about to form a conditioned feeling, whether it's pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, you'd like to cut this off at the bodily sensation before it even becomes a feeling. You're not suppressing your feelings or repressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. So there's this early warning system that you need to get clued into more and more and notice it sooner and sooner that your mind's about to experience a conditioned feeling. Now, sometimes when I teach people to cut off conditioned pleasant feelings, they're like, hold on a second, David, that doesn't sound right. Like, I understand eliminating the anger and the frustration, but why would I eliminate happiness and excitement? The reason why is because this is conditional happiness, conditional excitement, that you can only be happy if certain conditions are met. And that is temporary. What the Buddha is guiding you to is unconditional happiness, unconditioned joy. If you allow your mind to have conditional happiness, the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. So for example, let's just say you get really happy and excited because you got a brand new job. You're so excited. It's the best company, the best salary, the best job title, the best office, the best coworkers. Oh my gosh, you just can't wait to show up to that job. You're so excited to start. Well, 3 years later, when they lay you off because they went out of business, or maybe they've downsized and they're firing employees, you're going to be angry. You're going to be sad and frustrated because you can only be happy if you have this job. So you need to learn how to enjoy something without conditional pleasant feelings. If you go to a restaurant and you're eating this chocolate cake, and every single time you go to this restaurant, you get this chocolate cake, and oh my gosh, you're so excited to get this chocolate cake every time you go. When you show up and they don't have your chocolate cake, you'll be frustrated and angry. So you need to be willing to get rid of these conditional pleasant feelings that your mind can only be happy if certain conditions are met in order for you to get to the unconditioned happiness where you can be happy no matter what. Because what the unenlightened mind does is if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if I have this much money, if I have this kind of house, this kind of car, if the weather is like this, then I'll be happy, right? So you have all these cravings, all these expectations that all these things have to be true, and then you'll be happy. So your happiness is shrinking because it's conditional. You can only be happy if certain conditions are met. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is how to get beyond that. That if you allow your mind to get this temporary happiness, you'll never actually get to the permanent happiness where it's unconditioned. Because an enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met. Their mind is just already happy. It's inwardly happy. And now if it's sunny outside, if it's raining outside, they're still happy. Their happiness isn't based on external objects. If their bank account balance is here or it's here, they're still happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to be happy. So you're going to need to be able to identify the arising of discontentedness, whether it's a pleasant feeling, painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant, as a bodily sensation. And sometimes this can take like a year or so, maybe even longer, to build up to the point where you can even notice that this is occurring. Because you need to develop your mind and mature your mind enough with breathing mindfulness meditation and the other techniques that the Buddha teaches on the Eightfold Path to get to this point. But once you do number one, where you cut off and let go at the bodily sensations, and now the mind is calm, this is where you would like to move to number two. You would like to start reflecting. You would start to look inward and figure out, what am I craving? What am I longing, yearning for? What is the mind craving to be permanent? And now if you start looking inward, you can identify what is the craving, desire, attachment that the mind has. Then once you identify that, then you can move to step number three, which is you can develop a plan that eliminates this specific craving, desire, attachment that caused the discontentedness while maintaining a consistent practice of breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity. So this plan that you're going to create, I'm going to give you some examples of this so you can understand what I'm talking about. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're either going to distance your mind from a certain object, or you're going to put your mind in a situation that it really doesn't actually want to be in. So I'm going to explain to you guys what that is here in a moment. But there's a specific plan that you can create to almost surgically go in and remove a significant number of these cravings, desires, attachments. Then once you do that, you repeat this process over and over and over again. Anytime there's discontentedness that arises, cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. You look inward, reflect, what is my craving, desire, attachment here? Now you create a plan to specifically target a specific craving, desire, attachment. So here's some examples that you can understand this. One time when I was actually doing this work, I was driving down the road in my wife's car. Actually has a truck. And I was driving down the road and I happened to be at a red light, and I reached down to get my mobile phone, and I realized that I didn't have my mobile phone with me. And right away, there was this fear that came up in my mind. I immediately got fearful, and I cut it off and let it go. I did number one, right? I cut that off and let it go, because you're not interested in allowing your mind to experience this fear. But I could notice the fear coming up, and I cut it off and let it go. And then since I was sitting at the red light, I started looking inward. And I was like, what am I craving here? Because initially, my mind wanted to turn around and go get the phone. That's what I thought. Because when I realized that it was the phone that the mind really wanted, with this inner reflection that I was doing, I realized that, whoa, the mind's craving the phone. The mind's craving for this thing to be permanent. And the initial thought was to turn around and go get the phone. Because I was only about 5 minutes from my house. I could have easily went and got the phone. But understanding the teachings of the Buddha, I realized that that would be the most unwise thing to do. Because the mind is longing, yearning for this phone. It didn't feel comfortable being outside without the phone. Turning around to go get the phone doesn't solve the problem. It allows the craving to continue to stay in the mind. I needed to release this craving from the mind, because with this craving in the mind, I could only be happy if I had my phone and I was outside with my phone. Outside without the phone, there was no happiness. There was fear, right? So I needed to train the mind to let go of this craving, desire, attachment. And going to get the phone wasn't going to do that. So this number three, instead of going to get the phone, I decided to continue in my day. I was only supposed to be out for like an hour and a half that day, but I decided to stay outside longer. I went and did all the things that I was supposed to do initially for the hour and a half, but then I did other things. I went to the movies. I went to go get something to eat. I stayed outside for like 5 or 6 hours. And then when I came home, I didn't just rush and go look for the phone and see what was going on the phone. I just left the phone where it was at. And I did some other stuff. I was playing with my son. I was watching some TV. 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours later, I went and looked at the phone. Well, then about 2 or 3 days later, knowing that this was a problem, I decided to intentionally leave the phone at home. And now I left and went outside without the phone. And it was uncomfortable, but I didn't have fear. It was just kind of an underlying uncomfortableness. So now when I went outside, I was uncomfortable. And once again, I stayed outside for 5-6 hours without this phone. And then when I came home, once again, I didn't run and go look at the phone right away. I just left it where it was at. And then eventually, after an hour or so, I went and looked at the phone. And then about 2 months after that, no, about 5 days after that, I did it again. I left the phone at home. I left the phone at home and I went outside and I felt completely comfortable without the phone. And then I was like, I think I've eliminated this craving, because this is the third time I've been outside without the phone. And now the mind doesn't have any discontentedness whatsoever. There's no fear. Well, about 2 months after that, I accidentally left my phone at home again. I was riding my motorbike this time, which I don't ride motorbikes anymore, but I was riding my motorbike and I reached down and to grab the phone and it wasn't there. And I was like, oh, well, and I just kept on going. No fear, no uncomfortableness, no nothing. I just kept on going in my day. And I was like, sweet, that felt really nice. I think the craving has been eliminated. Well, then about a year after that, I ended up dropping my phone by accident and the screen shattered. And I picked it up and I looked at it and I started laughing. And I was like, of course, it's impermanent. And thankfully, my wife had another phone that I could use, because at that time I couldn't afford another phone. So I could just use the second phone that she had. But in that situation, if my mind had a craving for the phone to be permanent, I would have been angry. I would have been frustrated because this phone just broke right in front of my eyes, right? So I was convinced that this craving, desire, attachment had been eliminated. So this phone was something that I was getting pleasant feelings from. So I needed to distance myself from this phone. Anything that you're getting pleasant feelings from, you're going to need to distance yourself from it to train your mind to let it go. And that's what I did with the phone. But there's going to be some things that you get painful feelings from, and your approach to that is going to be different. Number 1 and 2 is the same. You're going to still cut off and let go whenever you have discontentedness. You're still going to look inward and reflect. But for things that you have painful feelings from, you're going to need to include that into your life in order to train your mind to get over the craving, desire, attachment. So let me give you an example of this. Are you guys familiar with durian fruit? You guys know this fruit? You know this fruit? Well, I think it smells like poop. And I've never had poop in my mouth before, but I think if I did, it would be just like this fruit. The consistency of the fruit and in your mouth, it seems like poop. At least that's what I thought the first time I ever ate it. So the first time I ever ate it, I was repulsed by it. I was like, this is horrible. I don't ever want that fruit ever again. That's usually what the mind does when it tastes the flavor, that it seems to be disagreeable. What's causing this is your craving, desire, attachment. The mind seeing things as agreeable or disagreeable. And what you'll tend to do is you'll push that away. That's the aversion that I was talking about. The mind will push this person or it'll push a situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But that doesn't solve your problem, because you still have your craving, desire, attachment in your mind. So in this situation, I needed to bring durian fruit into my life because I had these painful feelings. I was repulsed by this fruit and I was pushing it away. Well, the natural fruit was too much for me to bear. So I didn't just eat the natural fruit. I did something for this plan that was kind of a little bit more in the middle, where I started eating durian cakes because I like cake, right? So I started eating the durian cake, and the smell wasn't as strong and the consistency of the natural fruit wasn't there. So I could eat these durian cakes, and I started eating them somewhat regularly. And once I trained my mind to be comfortable eating these durian cakes, then eventually I started eating the fruit again. And I was completely fine eating the fruit now. So you can include things into your life that you have painful feelings from. Let's just say, for example, you don't like to be around large crowds. And when you're around large crowds, you notice that you get stressed and you get anxiety. This is painful feelings that your mind doesn't like. Well, you're not going to be able to eliminate that problem by avoiding large crowds. That's typically what people will say is, I'm never going around large crowds. Well, someday you're going to be walking through the city. Maybe you're in New York City. You're walking through the city. You turn the corner, and next thing you know, you're in a big political protest, and there's thousands of people around you. Very easy to happen in pretty much any city in the world, that you could easily just be walking down the street, you turn the corner, and boom, now you're in this big environment where all these people are. And now your stress and your anxiety is coming up. So you haven't solved the problem by avoiding the large crowds. Because you get painful feelings in this situation, if you notice that, use that as a red light on the dashboard of your car, cut that off and let it go the first time you notice it, then start reflecting and looking inward. What is your craving here? Oh, I don't want to be around large crowds. I only want to be around 2 or 3 people. That's the permanence that the mind's craving. Well, the third thing is to now put the mind in that situation. Because you get painful feelings in that situation, you're going to need to put your mind in that situation where you go to places where there's large crowds and you train your mind to be comfortable. Because if your mind can only be comfortable when you're around 2 or 3 people, you're not free. Your mind's not liberated, that it's bound up, that you can only be comfortable when you're around these people. The benefits that I was talking about with the enlightened mental state is that, yes, you get rid of craving, desire, attachment, you eliminate your discontent feelings, but you also experience focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, and all these other qualities that you experience with enlightenment. You can't experience that as long as craving, desire, attachment is in your mind, because your mind is pulling and it's longing, it's yearning. When you're in a certain environment, you're kind of on guard, kind of looking out for things that your minds may be fearful of. And you can lay that burden down by eliminating craving, desire, attachment from your mind. And now that's what frees up your mind to be completely calm and completely peaceful, because you're not on guard, kind of looking around and being fearful for what's going to happen next. So this particular process is what's going to help you to be able to do that. So wherever you see that your mind's getting pleasant feelings from something, you're going to need to distance yourself from that for a period of time. But then eventually you're going to be able to go back to those particular things. In most cases, wherever you see something that's painful, that your mind is experiencing painful feelings, you're going to need to include that into your life and expose your mind to that type of thing and train your mind to get rid of the craving, desire, attachment that way. So do you guys have questions on this? Anything you guys would like to ask me about this process of how to do this? You have a question, Rachel? Yeah, I see you moving. All right. Anybody else have a question? Remember, online, you guys can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
My question is about bodily sensations for like the pleasant aspect. Does the unconditioned mind have bodily sensations if something pleasant is occurring, let's say? So mainly, I guess my question is, if the body notices a bodily sensation, is that always a conditioned pleasant feeling? Is it always alerting you of a craving, or does it unconditioned certain aspects? Yeah.
An enlightened being doesn't have any craving, desire, attachment in their mind. So there's nothing that's triggering the bodily sensations associated with conditioned feelings. You still have bodily sensations, like you have an itch or a scratch or something like that, but you're not going to have any arising of discontentedness. So there's no arising of bodily sensations associated with discontentedness and craving, desire, attachment by the time you get to enlightenment.
Sometimes I'm on Instagram and I'm watching videos, and like I get like tingly sensations if I'm watching something that the mind deems pleasant, but I'm unsure if that's a craving.
Yes.
It is for sure?
Yes. If it's something you find pleasurable and you're noticing like tingling, it's usually across the shoulders, up the back of the neck and over the head. This is the warm fuzzies that we call it. that's the conditioned pleasant feelings arising. So you'd like to learn how to watch that and just enjoy it. And, you do it with a smile, you do it with enjoyment, but you don't get conditioned pleasant feelings. And that sounds very strange to some people. Like, how can you enjoy something without pleasant feelings? This is what the mind needs to learn how to do in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And you need to experience it to be able to see how the mind can do that, where the mind can be steady and stable and calm, but thoroughly enjoy what you're experiencing. And that's what you'll be able to do with everything by the time you get to enlightenment.
So should I distance myself from Instagram for a while, do you think?
Yes, that would be the plan here. In fact, that's the next part. Once you guys understand this process, is that usually what I do as part of this class is invite you guys to share examples where maybe you have a certain craving, desire, attachment that you're trying to get rid of, and you would like to maybe talk out with me about a certain plan. But yeah, you would be wise to distance yourself from Instagram for an extended period of time. And then once you've done that for several months, you'll slowly be able to start using Instagram again. Right? If, let's just say I went to that restaurant, I was eating that chocolate cake every single day, and then I showed up one day and they didn't have my chocolate cake and I got angry and frustrated. That's the red light on the dashboard alerting me that I'm getting pleasant feelings from this cake and I have a craving. So now what would be wise is to distance yourself from that, not go to that restaurant, or go to that restaurant and just don't order the chocolate cake for an extended period of time, for multiple months. And now, eventually, once your mind has gone to the restaurant and you have just as much fun going to the restaurant and not getting your chocolate cake as you do when you got your chocolate cake, now you can start having your chocolate cake again every once in a while. Just integrate it in every once in a while, because there's nothing harmful with the chocolate cake, but you've got to get rid of that craving, that longing, yearning that produced that frustration when you didn't get your chocolate cake. And this is what actually brings in the focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind, because the mind can't perform optimally when you have all these cravings, when your mind's longing, yearning, and chasing all these different things. So that's what's helping you to be able to get to that point where your mind's performing optimally. So if you guys have certain cravings, desires, attachments that you would like to talk about, we can do that in our class. So if you guys have certain things that you're, like Rachel's talking about, that you would like to get help on, just let me know. Or if you have questions about what it is that I'm talking about, feel free to let me know. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I can hear you, but not through the microphone yet. The people online won't be able to hear you unless you turn on the mic. They'll appreciate that. It's on now.
Okay. I think your opinion that meditation, sharing, and focus is very good, and I can understand it. But I wonder if it's too negative to cut it off when you have some craving. You crave for like conditional or happiness, or like your work or your success or money or something. When you crave it, you want to cut it off or do something like this. Is this too negative?
I don't think of it that way. It works to get to the point where you're completely peaceful. Your mind's completely calm. You don't experience any anger or frustration ever again. And there's nothing negative about that.
But there will still be some stress when you face some difficulty.
By the time you get to enlightenment, that doesn't occur any longer. But you'll never get to that if you keep allowing the mind to experience the conditioned feeling. So these bodily sensations that are occurring, let me back up. There's something in your mind called sensual desire. What sensual desire is where your mind's longing, yearning through your senses, through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. Your mind is craving permanently agreeable contact through these. So for example, if you're at a stoplight and someone pulls up to you with some music that you like and you find agreeable, you'll be like, wow, that's my jam. All right, let's go. Let's have a party. Come on. You'll be dancing in your seat, having a good old time because you're getting contact through your ear that is agreeable to you. But now you'll pull up to the next traffic light and you'll hear someone else pull up with a different type of music, and you don't listen to this music, and you find this music to be disagreeable in your ear, and now you're angry and frustrated, and you might think that it's the other person who's causing that, but they're not causing your anger and frustration. It's your sensual desire. The mind is longing, yearning through these sense spaces, wanting permanently agreeable contact while you live in an impermanent world. So this is the Buddha giving you instructions about how this being works. That's what you're learning as part of this path. Everything nowadays has an instruction manual. Probably even a pitcher of water comes with an instruction manual, but nobody gave you an instruction manual to this being who you are. How does this being work? How does this being function? Well, in the unenlightened state, you have sensual desire in your mind, and your mind's longing, yearning through these sense spaces. And if you get what you want, you get happy and excited. But if you don't get what you want, you get angry and frustrated. So the way that you transform this and you completely train the mind to not experience that is you've got to cut off and let go. So when you hear that music that you really like, there's no harm in dancing and having a good time, but you need to train your mind to not have conditioned pleasant feelings. And then when you pull up and the next guy or girl has music that you don't particularly listen to, it's like, hey, they're having a good time. That's not music that I usually listen to, but I don't need to be angry or frustrated about that. I can just understand this is an impermanent situation and they're having fun. Wonderful. I'm pleased that they're enjoying their music. And now you just sit there for 3 minutes while the traffic light is red, and then they move on and you're on to your next thing. No need to be angry or frustrated, but you can't get to that if you don't cut off and let go. Because if you allow that sound to come into your ear and it's like, whoa, I feel so happy. I feel so excited. Well, that means when that's not occurring, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm agitated. So when the bodily sensation is occurring, this is the early warning system alerting you your mind's about to form a feeling. And you say, nope, not going to let you do that. Because what the mind's trying to do is it's trying to form a feeling based on external circumstances. And you're saying, no, I'm not going to let you do that, mind. So there's the body, there's the mind, but then there's the person. The person is the combination of the body and the mind. The person is looking at the mind and saying, I'm not going to let you get that conditioned feeling. And the mind's like, no, I want a conditioned feeling. I want to have a conditioned feeling. And the person's like, no, I'm not going to let you do that. So you cut it off and let it go. And eventually you train this mind so well that it doesn't form conditioned feelings, that you can enjoy every single thing around you. But you can't get to that if you don't cut off and let go, because it's going to keep forming these conditioned feelings. Yep, you're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay. So I had a question. Let's say that I had a hectic day, a hectic working day, and I'm very stressed. And my only solution for me really is to play with video games. And maybe keep distance from video games makes me very uncomfortable. So I would like to know, is there any alternative ways for me to get relaxed other than video games, or any ways that I can do during those transition period when I get to the enlightenment?
Yeah, train your mind with meditation, because what you're doing in this situation is your mind is experiencing a painful feeling, right? Stress and anxiety. The reason why you're experiencing that is because of craving, desire, attachment. Your mind's not getting something that it wants, right? And now when you're in those painful feelings, what the mind's going to want to do is crave something else in order to get to conditioned pleasant feelings. This is why someone comes home from a hard day of work and they turn to alcohol, or they turn to sex, or gambling, or shopping, because their mind went to work with all these cravings and they didn't get fulfilled. And now they're angry or sad or frustrated. And they think the way to get back to something that feels somewhat comfortable is to crave something else, because these painful feelings feel uncomfortable. And with the mind's lack of wisdom of what's going on, it thinks the way to solve this is drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping, video games, right? This is what the mind's going to turn to. But this just keeps the cycle going, because when you're not playing your video games, you're going to be back in the painful feelings again, right? So you'd like to be able to notice what's going on here. And that's why I'm giving you this process here of what you can do. So what you would like to do when you come home and you're noticing the stress and anxiety is you'd like to cut it off and let it go, cut it off and let it go, cut it off and let it go. But you won't be able to do that very easily if you're not consistently practicing breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. That's why you need that, to be able to consistently train your mind to cut off and let go. Once you cut off and let go and the mind is calm, you start looking inward. Why is this stress there? Why is this anger there? There's something you're craving. There's something you're longing for. Oh, there was that conversation I had with my friend at work and it didn't go the way I wanted. And now I feel this stress. And now you notice what your craving, desire, attachment is. And now you train your mind to be able to let it go through putting together a specific plan. And each situation is going to be different about what type of plan that you would put together. I gave you guys a couple of examples, but you're going to need to be able to see this in your own life and figure this out. And in about 80% of the situations, you can do this, but there's some situations where you wouldn't necessarily do this. Like, let's just say, for example, your coworker yelled and hollered and screamed at you. Well, there's no plan for you to put in place there because you just live your life and people are going to yell and holler and scream at you occasionally because of impermanence. Not everybody's going to be polite, kind, friendly, or respectful. So that type of thing is going to happen naturally by itself. You don't need to put your mind in that situation. It's going to actually happen from time to time. So that's where you'll be able to train your mind that way. But in other situations, you'll be able to induce it and you'll actually be able to create it. But the last thing you're interested in doing is turning to a craving to get you out of pleasant feelings. Get you out of painful feelings, because it just keeps the cycle going over and over and over again. Do you see it? Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. I have two questions. The first one is about the third step. The third step means you should put yourself in some uncomfortable situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to train yourself, your mind in this comfortable situation, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. What the mind's going to want to do, though, is it's going to want to push it away. Because the mind wants to be permanently comfortable. That's what the mind's craving. So you'll push away. That's typically what the mind does. Like I did with durian fruit. I was pushing that away. I didn't want to be anywhere near durian fruit. That's what the mind thinks is the way to solve this. But it's actually not going to solve it, because in the mind, you still have the craving. So you need to expose your mind to the thing that it sees to be undesirable. And now that's what's going to train your mind to let go. And now you can be comfortable whether you're eating durian fruit or not eating durian fruit, whether you're around large crowds or you're not around large crowds. You can be comfortable either way. So you need to expose the mind to the things that it finds to be uncomfortable. Nowadays, modern psychology teaches the same thing. They actually call it exposure therapy. That if you are finding that you have painful feelings in any certain situation, they suggest to you to expose your mind to it. And that's the same thing that I'm teaching here.
So if I'm a fear of something, so I have to face my fear, right?
Right. The fear isn't going to go away. Like say if you fear snakes or spiders, it's not going to go away by avoiding snakes and spiders. You'll never eliminate that fear because the root cause is the craving in the mind. So instead, you would expose your mind to this. You would look at pictures in a magazine or on the internet of snakes and spiders. And then as the discontentedness is coming up, you cut that off. And then maybe you go to a museum where the snakes and spiders are there, but they're not alive, and you look at them. Right? And you notice the fear coming up and you cut it off and cut it off and cut it off. But then eventually go to a place where they're actually alive. Like maybe you go out into the forest or go to a pet store or something like this and look at them moving around, or go to a zoo. And now you can be like, oh, okay, well, there's a snake and there's no fear. There's no uncomfortableness. So you'll never actually eliminate it by avoiding it. And now your mind can be at ease, because when you're carrying around craving, desire, attachment, it's like a burden. And you're carrying this heavy burden on your shoulders, and your mind can't be free. It can't be peaceful. So you need to lay that burden down by training your mind to let go by exposing it to these things. Where if it's something you're getting pleasant feelings from, you need to distance yourself from that for a period of time and then actually come back to it later after your mind's let go of the craving.
Okay, my second question is, there is a old saying in China, you don't crave from other people, but you can crave from yourself. How do you think about that?
Yeah, this is the challenge with culture, is every culture has certain things like this, but you'll never actually experience enlightenment if you just follow culture. It's important that you break through culture and you see what is the actual true natural laws that the Buddha taught. So any type of craving, desire, attachment is going to produce discontentedness, even if you crave meditation. One time I was meditating. I was in my room meditating. I thought I was at home by myself because my son was supposed to be at school. My wife was going to take him to school. I was at home meditating by myself. I was like 3 minutes into my meditation, and my son comes into my room. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I need you to take me to school." I was like, what? He's like, "I need you to take me to school." I was like, "I thought your mom was going to take you." He said, "Yeah, me too, but she's gone. I don't know where she's at. I need you to take me to school." So even if I was craving meditation and I was holding on to meditation, I would have been angry and frustrated in that situation. But instead, I just got up, took him to school, and then when I came back home, I meditated then. Right? So you can't even crave something like meditation. Sometimes people teach there's wholesome cravings and unwholesome cravings. Not true. Anything that your mind is craving and longing, yearning for, it will produce discontentedness. So you're not interested in having any longing, yearning, craving. And sometimes when I say this, people say, well, if I get rid of my craving, desire, attachment, won't I be unmotivated? Won't I be lethargic? Won't my mind swing to the other side and be dull and lethargic? Well, it might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests with ambition and enthusiasm and motivation. But the mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state because it's so used to chasing after things. So the mind, when you're eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments, it may swing to the other side, but that's not ultimately where you need to be. You need to be able to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests. But there's no such thing as a wholesome or a good craving, because every craving is going to produce discontentedness. Even if you crave water. If I was maybe going hiking and I had a liter of water in my car and I'm 30 minutes down the trail and I'm like, "Oh, my water, oh my gosh, my water." And now I run back to my car, my water. Your mind's discontent in that situation. So it's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind's longing, yearning for it. Because you could also have someone else on the trail. They're 30 minutes down the trail and they're like, I forgot my water. I'm going to be out here for like 6 hours. I should probably turn around and get my water. And now you turn around calmly, you make your way back to your car, you get your water, and you go on your hike. No big deal, right? But a craving, desire, attachment is always going to produce discontentedness. So you're not interested in having any of those in your mind whatsoever. And there's the training that the Buddha teaches you to be able to do that. So while we're here talking about all of this, let me just back up to something that I've taught in previous classes, which is the Eightfold Path. This is what you would really like to start with. What you guys are learning now in chapter 13 is something that we're penetrating into and showing you how to surgically remove your cravings, desires, attachments. But this is the main teaching that you would like to learn with the resources that I share, because I share with the original words of the Buddha. You can get all the resources for free. You can download the books for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. This is the first book that you would like to start with. This is what I'm using for this program, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you would like to start with. This is what you would like to learn first, because what I'm teaching you now is, deeper into the book. But chapter 4 and 5 is this particular teaching. This is what is really going to guide you to enlightenment. And what I'm teaching you now is a complement to this and plugs into the Eightfold Path. You guys have other questions that you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay. So what I'll do then is just end class by thanking all of you guys. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys have more questions or you'd like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to do that. Tonight at 6:30, I'm going to be here guiding students in meditation. And then we have a question and answer session where people can just ask any random questions that you guys would like. You're welcome to join that if you like. At 9 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be teaching the same exact class because I live stream. So like right now, the people in Europe are sleeping. So I live stream in the mornings like this, and I live stream in the evening so that no matter where you are in the world, there's a live class available for you. And then if you can't attend the live class, you can watch the recordings because it's on YouTube and Facebook. It's on our podcast and things like that. Next week, Monday through Friday, or this week, starting tomorrow, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., there's a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course where I'm going to be teaching for 5 days, a course that is helping you to get all the foundational teachings that you need to be able to get to enlightenment. And that Eightfold Path that I was just mentioning, I'm going to be teaching it on Tuesday morning as part of that course, where I'm going to be thoroughly walking students through step by step, helping them to understand it. So I'm going to be teaching a whole host of things as part of the Monday through Friday. And then each Friday at 6 p.m., we have a social event here where we come together for game night. It's called Temple Fun Night, where we come together, we listen to music, we play games, we usually have some snacks and food and things like that. So you guys are welcome to join that as well. You'll see these events and others on our bulletin board over there, or you can also look at our website, buddhadailywisdom.com, and you'll see an events calendar with all the options for you. So whatever you choose to do today, have a lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.